dare feel sorry for ourselves. You remember Elijah? Elijah was up in the mountain, Mount Carmel, and he had a tremendous experience of the power of God. And the fire just wiped up the altar, and they came down, and Jezebel says to him, before the night's over, your neck's gone. And Elijah felt so sorry for himself that he ran as fast as he could out of that city and out into the wilderness, and there was a juniper tree, and there he cried unto God and said, God, just take me out of here. Just kill me. Let me go. I'm tired of this world. Well, God didn't answer that prayer. I just want you to know, if God sometimes doesn't answer your prayer, sometimes it's pretty good that God doesn't answer our prayer. And sometimes you almost have to have reservations under the juniper tree because so many people feel sorry for themselves. I only say that if you get a little droopy sometimes. You remember Moses? Moses, when he was called to deliver the children of Israel, he said, you know, God, I can't talk very good. And so finally he gave him Aaron. Excuses are not acceptable in the sight of God. So let's not be droopy-winged people. Secondly, in droopiness, we get droopy wings when we live in the past. And I didn't think that when we live in the past and say, oh man, I wish I was back there again. I'm not sure how many of you want to still carry, well, even Kansas didn't carry corn cobs, but we in Nebraska did, and Minnesota, didn't we? Yes, we carried corn cobs in, and the wood and all that. I don't want to go back to that hard. I just had to bring that in. There's a little poem that goes like this. The lightning bug is brilliant. He hasn't any mind. He blunders through existence with his headlights on behind. We don't dare, you know, lightning bugs are kind of cute, but we don't dare go in that particular direction. Yesterday is a canceled check. Tomorrow is a promissory note. Today is the only cash you have. Spend it wisely. Let's not live in the past, but let's move forward with God. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. And the third thing is, some people just see the bad side. And I forgot to bring my dark glasses on. And some just see darkness all the time. Doesn't make any difference. The preacher didn't stay behind the pulpit today, and the choir didn't sing my song today, and oh, you should have heard those kids. They were something else. Don't they teach them anything at all? Let's not look at the bad side of life, that you've been treated so bad and so terrible. There was a fellow that thought he was dead. And he said, I'm dead. And he just told his relatives, I'm dead. And finally, they decided he needed a little help up here. And so they took him to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, dead men don't bleed. I want you to always say that, dead men don't bleed. And so for 2-3 weeks, he just walked around and said, dead men don't bleed, dead men don't bleed. And so they thought, well, you know, this guy's coming through. And so the psychiatrist said, do dead men don't bleed, do they? Nope, he said, they just don't bleed. And he said, I'll give you your hand. And he stuck something sharp and he bled. And the guy looked at it. And he said, you know, dead men do bleed. You see, sometimes we get in such a rut in life that we find ourselves caught in the middle of things that ought not so to be. We don't dare to look at the bad side. Let's look at that which is good and great in the world. If you lose your sense of humor, you will have drooping wings. Even the scripture says God lacks, and I sometimes wonder, God must sometimes wonder what I do. And even I say, oh, this creature that I made, I wonder, well, it was just kind of say, he's different. Didn't know about that. A merry heart doth good like medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. Let us make sure that we don't lose our sense of humor. And lastly, very quickly, don't lose a sense of mission. When you lose a sense of mission while you're here, you will have droopy wings. We need to be aware that we know what our mission is. Very quickly, I remember my father told me the Model A's were way back there in my childhood days, and he said, go fill that thing up with water. You know, you had to fill it up with water. You didn't have some of the stuff we have now. And I went and filled it, you know, every time I filled it to the full, and then I watched it. Went down a little ways, I'd go get some more water, pour a little bit more in. And I couldn't understand it. And finally, I gave up. And I walked to my father and said, I can't fill this thing up. Well, you know it has an overflow. Well, I didn't know that it had an overflow. And so, you see, we must know what our mission is, why we're here. Jesus came with a mission. The disciples knew what their mission was. Our forefathers came, and they knew what their mission was. Let us make sure what our mission for this church is. Let us make sure what the mission is for us as individually. What is your mission within the church? Just sitting in the pews? If that's what God has called you, that's fine. But if God has called you for more, let's accept that mission, and let's be sure that we do it well. Otherwise, you will have droopy wings. And if you have a droopy wing, it's not a very pretty sight. May God help us to not have droopy wings. May His Spirit